right. Good morning, or good evening, or whatever time you're viewing this video. It's always available for you to watch, to download the patterns and make the quilt. So this week, can we see this? Yeah. Let's see. I'm going to start out with the hard block, which is going to be the sailboat. And if you print off your sheet, and you will need to print off your sheet, we have a pattern piece that EQ8 printed like this. So I'm not sure. I'm probably going to just take this and lob this piece off, and then we'll make a rectangle after we sew our triangle unit onto this. I'm not really sure how I'm going to achieve this, but I'm going to start with the hard one first because I've got to figure it out so that I can share it with you. Let's get started. You will need, let's see, I think I'm going to make my sky blue, so for pieces J and K, I'm probably going to go with like a robin's egg blue. And then for the mast sails, I'm going to probably go with a couple different prints of darker blue. And then for I'm also going to go for some darker blue. And then maybe for the C and H, I'm not sure if I'm going to make that sky or if I'm going to make it C. I'll probably make it sky. But you will need approximately 1, 2, 3, 4. You could use up to 5 fabrics. I think I'm going to use 4. Okay, I have my pieces cut out. I have cut out K, J, I, M, H, and O. And I want to lay this out because I want to see. So this will overlap. Okay. I am going to take piece J and I am going to trim it on the dotted line. All right, I have trimmed it on the dotted line, and I'm going to do the same thing to piece K. I'm going to trim on the dotted line. And I'm additionally going to save these pieces because I am going to need, these are like somewhat of a template. These are going to be represented by what is here, which, yes, this should be a 1/4 inch bigger all the way around, and it looks like it is. So I am going to cut a strip that is 1 inch of my background fabric. And after playing with this and my pieces I have left for my scraps, I've decided to just use 2 colors. So I am going to cut my 1 inch strip, and your 1 inch strip is not going to have to be very big. I don't want to waste all this fabric. Let's see. And I probably need to change my rotary blade. I can feel it dragging. have my strip. And now I need to cut my triangle. Okay, it turns out the strip, 3 times a charm. It needs to be 1.5 inches. Again, I miscalculated the seam allowance. I hate math. So. So my mistakes, you get to learn from them. All right, now pay no mind to my stitch marks, but now they look like they are gonna work. Last time they looked a little small. I thought, oh, I can fudge this. No fudging. All right, so how do you know you have this the right size? So if that middle point lines up on the edge here, and there's a dog ear where the 2 raw edges come together, and that's where your stitching is, this should come out to being perfect. And it's not, but it's gonna be perfect enough for me. Yeah, and right now you would go and you would trim up your block to, I think it was 3.5 by 4.5, I think. Yeah. So we'll just whack that off. And it's good enough. I'm getting the hard one out of the way. And we're gonna press that one like that. And trim. Four and a half by 3.5. This block's really wonky. Really wonky. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and sew my 2 halves together at this point. Okay, for the boat part of your block, piece I and piece H, you are going to start with a strip that is 6.5 by 2.5, and then your background fabric will be 2 2.5 inch squares. And basically you're just going to lay them over the corners. Draw a line from corner to corner. So just on this side of the line, trim off the excess, then press out. If you're going to use the folded corners ruler, wherever my ruler is, there it is. You will align all your edges and make your cut. And sew your bonus triangles for another project. All right. The block is ready to sew together. I went ahead and pressed this center seam open. You could press it to one side or the other. I don't think it really matters. And we've almost completed one of the 4 blocks this week. All right, my pieces are sewn together. I verified that it measures 6.5 by 6.5. If it does not, trim as necessary. This block probably would have looked better with a mast running down the middle, If you watch this all the way through and decide to do that, that is an option. All you would have to do is sew maybe half an inch, and I would probably pick the small side, and that triangle will shrink a little bit by adding a little bit of piece of fabric down the middle. Will throw this all off, but after you put it on there, you'll be able to trim this back down to 3.5 by 4.5, and then sew your pieces together, and that way it will not look like your sails are floating. Kind of looks like a spaceship, kind of looks like a paratrooper block. Anyway, it's your quilt, your block, do it as you wish. And as far as pressing, I press these up. You could press this up or down. Let's move on to the next block. This one was a nightmare for me. Okay, the next block we're going to be making is a 16 patch. You can go extremely scrappy with this if you like. I may just use 2 fabrics for this one. Even though I've got plenty of scraps to use, I think I'm going to use 2 fabrics and go that route. Just because a couple weeks back I made a really scrappy block and it was just too busy, and it took, I think it takes away. So I'm going to just use 2 prints. You can use as many as you like. All of your squares, let's see, we'll measure 4 into 6 is 2. Gosh, what will they measure? Let's see. 2, 4, 6, 8. According to the pattern, they'll measure 2 inches, so just cut you out some 2-inch squares or 2-inch strips and make your 16 patch. All right, I'm using 2 fabrics, so my strip size is 2 inches, and I will need 8 2-inch squares from this, or cuts, so it'll have to at least be 16 inches long. I'm going to go ahead and sew my strips together and then subcut them. So I have spun all my seams and I laid this out, and if you do this right, all of your seams will nest on this block if you spin your seams. Notice that this one goes this way, that one goes that way, that one goes that way, this one goes that way. So spin your seams on this and all your seams will nest. All right, you can put away your blue fabrics for the week, and now we're going to come and do this one. Now, this is going to be using the Tri-Rex ruler, and it's going to be an all-neutral block. You can either make pieces N and G the same color, or you can make N a different color and make that little star spin in the center, and then go with a lighter neutral however you want to do it. You can choose up to 3 fabrics for this. I am probably going to choose 3, and I'm going to make N my darkest of the neutrals, and I will probably make F and G probably very similar in value as far as darkness and lightness. Okay, so this block, we're going to have 2 ways to build the block. You can either use your Tri-Rex ruler set, or you can use the templates. Because I'm only using 2 fabrics, I am not going to print off piece G, because there's no sense in me sewing this if it's going to be the same color as F. So I will be cutting out piece N. So how am I going to do this? So regardless if you're using the template or not, you are going to line up your template and you are going to cut, and I think this is right, hang on. I want to sew piece in. Yes, you are going to cut on the left side of this triangle, and you're going to cut this off regardless if you use this template or if you use wow, that looks really wonky. Hold on a second. Okay, it looks like the angle in F and N is going to be different than the Tri-Rex, but you'll get the same block. So you're going to lay piece F out and you're going to lob off the left side. I'm going to go ahead and do this with my Tri-Rex. I'm only going to cut one side. And then I'm going to cut my coordinating fabric. If you're using the paper templates, you'll cut it piece N, and if you're using your Tri-Rex, you're going to make sure that this is orientated right. Let me get that fabric. And incidentally, this strip of neutral fabric is 3.5 inches. And let's see, how big do we need to cut this? If it's, this looks like it's going to be a 2.5 inch strip. So let me cut that. And I'm going to trim some of this off. So, yeah, that was probably too much to trim off. And I said that was 2.5 inches, right? No. That's actually more than 3 inches. What the heck? 1, 2, 3.5 inches. So both of these are going to be at 3.5 inches. I don't know. I swear. My apologies if you've already cut your piece. The good news is we're using scraps, so it just becomes a different size scrap. All right. Now, if I'm using the Tri-Rex ruler and I need this cut, I will be cutting, and I'm going to mirror image this. No, I don't want to mirror image this. So I am going to orientate. How am I going to do this? Yeah. So I've flipped this over to make my cut. And I'm going to line up my line, my edge, my 3.5 inch edge here and my flat edge here. I'm going to scoot this over as far as I can because I may have to cut more fabric. And I cut that crooked. God, did you just see that? My cutter just followed a line in there. Oh, and then after I make that cut, I need to also finish the cut and make that little bitty notch right there. All right, and then I would proceed. If I cut out my piece N, wherever N went, where did N go? Here it is. Okay, I would cut out piece N, and then I would just lay it on my 3.5 inch strip that I've got this cut, and I would proceed to line this up. And when I line this up, if I'm flipping the paper over, you are going to line up that center point on the paper or excuse me, on your fabric. And that is going to be the edge that you line up with this raw edge. And then it should overhang perfectly 1/4 of an inch on the other end. If you're using the Tri-Rex ruler, you're going to do the same small center peak on your triangle, and you're going to sew that. All right, I have my piece sewn, and I'm going to press outward. And then I'm going to come and I'm going to cut this into a square, a 3.5 inch square. And it looks like I was off somehow whenever I sewed this, so I'm going to trim it up to the right size. Jeez Louise. Some days I have it, some days I don't. I'm actually losing a considerable amount on this side, but the good news is that this is just going to make a spinning star, so it's not really going to show. All right, I'm going to make 4 of these, so let's make another cut, and I'm going to repeat this 4 times. And I bet it was my off cut. All right, I have all of my squares cut to 3.5 inches after this wonky cut was added, and I will proceed to sew it into a 4 patch. Okay, for this next block, we are going to do freestyle on this block. So it's a strings block. I am going to go ahead and take my 4 pieces and sew some strip sets together, and then I'm going to take 2 more pieces and sew those together, and then we're going to sew them into a square. I have just grabbed a bunch of scraps out of my drawer that are already cut, and these scraps are about 2 inches wide or bigger. I think these are actually 2.5. I'm going to proceed with that. Don't worry about making C perfect, but you do have templates, and according to the templates, these measure 2.25 inch wide, and then D yeah, all of them are 2.25 inch wide. So if you want to cut your strips to 2.25, or if you want to use smaller strips, you can just put more strips in there. I am going to go ahead and sew mine whatever is already cut. Okay, how to proceed. So I've got my strips sewn, got 4 of them. I'm going to take and I'm going to square up this edge, and then make some magic by bisecting this using the center line on my ruler. And so I am going to give myself some extra. You can line this up however you want. This is how I'm doing it. Alright, I've given myself some extra, and I will do the same for this one. I've already got pretty much a straight edge on one side. And I'm going to give myself extra on this as well. And I've just kind of laid this out somewhat. Let me go ahead and make this a straight edge. And didn't overcomplicate this, because you could have. Let me tell you, I could have done that. Anyway, all right. So now I will proceed to sew my pieces together, and then I will retrim this up to 6.5 inches. I'm just going to center my pieces on top of one another. And sew. Alright, I've sewn my two halves together. And this can be as wonky as you want it to be. And I'm going to lay my 6.5 inch square ruler over this and then trim it back down. And yes, I gave myself about a 1/2 inch extra all the way around, and it looks like I needed it, so. And it looks like I'm a little bit short there, but that's going to get hidden in the seam allowance. I'm not going to stress over that. If I wanted to, I could lob that off and sew another piece on there, another scrappy piece. It doesn't really matter. This is just scraps. This is perfect. Make sure you square it up to 6.5 inches. Well, this block came together. I'm not going to say it was easy for me, but I have learned that you measure twice and you cut once. I could have done better on this, and I probably could have given more instructions on this, but it's just strings. Just sew them together and make sure you give yourself extra whenever you lay your square on there to square up your edge. It added great variety. I really like how this block turned out, and it's very different, and it makes me want to make a whole quilt just out of this block. I think that would be a lot of fun. And those squares, you know, are just 3.5 inch squares, and you're making a really neat spinning pinwheel. I don't know, I bet this is called the Whirligig. I need to look up the name of the block. I hope you had fun making this, and if you've missed any of the rest of the sew along, you can go ahead and check out the playlist Scrappy Churn Dash QAL, and it will have all of the videos, including the size, the in size, as well as all the fabric requirements and how much you need of what fabrics. I'm enjoying this. I hope you are too. I hope if you're not sewing along that you are still continuing to watch, because you can learn from these videos even though if you're not making them. And yes, you're going to learn from my mistakes. Thanks for watching. Thumbs up, everybody.